The ocean never truly rests. Even at night, when the surface darkens and the light fades into deep blue, movement continues below. Currents slide past reefs. Plankton drifts. Predators patrol. Somewhere in that darkness, a great white shark is swimming, its body cutting silently through cold water, its senses tuned to vibrations most animals never notice. It has been moving like this for hours. It will continue for days, possibly weeks, and all the while, something extraordinary is happening inside its body. It is not sleeping. Sleep, for humans, is unavoidable. The brain demands it. Without it, memory collapses, judgment fails, and eventually the body breaks down. For most animals, sleep is just as essential. Birds tuck their heads under wings. Mammals lie down or float motionless. Even fish enter states of reduced awareness. Yet great white sharks, some of the most powerful predators on Earth, appear to live in a constant state of motion and awareness. They do not curl up. They do not close their eyes. They do not stop swimming. And as far as science can tell, they do not sleep in any way that resembles our own. This raises a question that seems almost impossible. How does a brain survive without rest? To understand the mystery, it helps to start with movement. A great white shark cannot simply stop swimming for long periods of time. Unlike many bony fish, great whites rely on a process called ram ventilation. Water must flow continuously over their gills for oxygen to enter the bloodstream. If the shark stops moving, oxygen intake drops. In still water, suffocation becomes a real risk, but this alone does not explain the absence of sleep. Other sharks also need to swim, yet some of them manage rest. Nurse sharks wedge themselves into reef crevices. Lemon sharks can pump water over their gills while remaining mostly still. Great whites cannot. Their massive size, high metabolism, and open ocean lifestyle demand constant motion. Still motion does not equal wakefulness. Humans can sleep while moving. Birds can sleep while flying. Dolphins sleep with half their brain at a time. So the question becomes more precise. Does the great white brain ever truly shut down? For decades, scientists assumed sharks must sleep in some form. The alternative seemed biologically unreasonable. Every complex nervous system known appeared to require downtime. But studying sleep in sharks is extremely difficult. They cannot be kept easily in captivity. Their size, power, and constant movement make controlled brain monitoring almost impossible. As a result, much of what we know comes from indirect observation. Those observations are unsettling. Great white sharks do not show clear behavioral signs of sleep. They do not adopt resting postures. They do not become unresponsive for long periods. Even when tagged and tracked, their movement patterns show near continuous activity. They may slow slightly, glide using buoyancy, or change depth, but they do not enter prolonged stillness. Their eyes complicate the picture further. Great whites lack eyelids. They cannot close their eyes to block sensory input. During attacks, they roll their eyes back to protect them, but during normal swimming, their eyes remain open, constantly scanning. Visual processing never fully disengages. This constant sensory input suggests a brain that never fully powers down. One explanation lies in the structure of the shark brain itself. Compared to mammals, shark brains are simpler in some regions and highly specialized in others. They lack a neocortex, the region responsible for complex thought, imagination, and much of human consciousness. Instead, their brains are dominated by areas related to sensory processing, movement, and survival. This difference matters. Human sleep is deeply tied to cortical processing. Memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and abstract thinking require cycles of deep and REM sleep. Sharks do not process the world this way. Their intelligence is real, but it is distributed differently. Less internal narrative. More external awareness. In other words, the great white brain may not need sleep in the same way because it does not build up the same kind of cognitive fatigue, but this explanation only goes so far. Even animals with simpler brains still require rest. Cells accumulate waste. Neural connections need resetting. Metabolic processes demand recovery time. Somehow, great whites handle these needs without stopping. The answer may lie in how they rest without sleeping. Studies of shark behavior reveal subtle patterns. While great whites do not stop moving, they do shift into low energy states. They glide using lift generated by their large pectoral fins. They descend slowly, conserving energy, then rise again using minimal effort. Their muscle activity decreases. Their heart rate slows. But awareness does not disappear that this is not sleep. It is something closer to continuous light rest. Unlike mammals, sharks have oil-rich livers that provide buoyancy. This allows them to glide without constant muscle use. During these gliding phases, the body recovers even while the animal remains in motion. Muscles rest in cycles. Metabolism dips. The shark remains alert enough to detect prey or threats. But the energy demand drops. The brain, meanwhile, may be operating in a fragmented way. Some scientists suspect that sharks engage in localized neural rest. Instead of the entire brain sleeping at once, small regions may reduce activity briefly while others remain active. This is similar in principle to unihemispheric sleep in dolphins, but less organized and harder to detect. Rather than half the brain shutting down, tiny clusters of neurons may take turns resting. If this is true, the great white never experiences unconsciousness. There is no full disconnect from the environment, no dreaming, no deep sleep, only continuous awareness modulated by energy-saving states. This constant vigilance is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Great white sharks live in a world where stopping can be fatal. They migrate across entire oceans, tracking seals, tuna, and whales. They navigate changing temperatures, depths, and currents. They rely on a suite of senses that must remain active: electroreception to detect heartbeats, lateral lines to feel pressure waves, olfaction to sense blood from kilometers away. Shutting down even briefly could mean missing prey or drifting into danger. And yet, this raises a darker question. What is a life without true sleep do to a mind? In humans, sleep deprivation leads to hallucinations, emotional instability, and impaired judgment. But these effects arise from how our brains process information. The great white brain evolved under different constraints. It does not ruminate. It does not replay memories the same way. It does not simulate future scenarios or dwell on the past. Its mental world is narrower, but sharper. The great white exists almost entirely in the present. Sensory input flows in. Motor output flows out. There is little evidence of complex social bonding or long-term planning. This simplicity may protect the brain from the kinds of overload that make sleep mandatory in humans. Still, even sharks must recover. Their solution appears to be efficiency rather than shutdown. Great whites have slow-growing neurons and low rates of neuroplasticity compared to mammals. Their brains change gradually. They do not constantly rewire. This reduces the need for intensive memory consolidation. Their memories are durable and long-lasting, but form slowly. A hunting ground learned once can be remembered for years. In effect, the great white brain is built to endure, not to process endlessly. There is also the role of temperature. Great whites are regionally endothermic. They can keep parts of their bodies warmer than the surrounding water. This allows faster muscle response and neural processing when needed. But when they descend into colder depths, their body temperature drops slightly, slowing metabolism. This acts as a natural break, forcing periods of reduced activity without full shutdown. Cold becomes rest. Tracking. Data shows that great whites regularly dive deep for extended periods, sometimes to depths where light disappears and temperatures plunge. During these dives, movement becomes slow and steady. The shark is not hunting. It is not reacting. It is simply moving through darkness. Some researchers believe these deep dives function as a form of recovery, allowing physiological systems to reset while the shark remains in motion. If this is true, then sleep, as we understand it, is not absent. It has been transformed rather than a single block of unconsciousness. Rest is distributed across time, space, and physiology. Muscles rest while gliding. Metabolism slows in cold water. Neural circuits rotate through low activity states. Awareness never fully fades, but demand fluctuates. The result is an animal that never truly sleeps, yet never truly exhausts itself. This adaptation may be one of the reasons great whites have survived relatively unchanged for millions of years. They are not fast breeders. They mature slowly. Their populations recover poorly from decline. Yet as individuals, they are remarkably stable. Their lives are long. Some may live over 70 years. Across those decades, they roam endlessly, guided by instincts refined over deep time. To live that long without sleep, the body must be exceptionally resilient, but this resilience comes with limits. Great whites are not invincible. Stress affects them. Injury weakens them. Environmental changes disrupt migration and hunting. And while they may not sleep like we do, they are still biological systems bound by energy and physics. As oceans warm, prey distributions shift. Migration routes change. The delicate balance that allows continuous motion and partial rest may be harder to maintain. A shark forced to swim farther, hunt longer, or endure higher temperatures may push its system beyond what evolution prepared it for. Which brings us to the edge of what science knows. We understand how great whites move. We understand their physiology. We understand fragments of how they rest without stopping. But we do not yet understand what it feels like to be awake for a lifetime. Does the great white experience anything resembling fatigue? Does awareness ever dim? Or is its consciousness fundamentally different from ours, shaped by a world where stopping was never an option? Those questions remain unanswered. And they do not end here. Because the deeper scientists look into shark brains, the more they realize that great whites are not the only animals rewriting the rules of sleep. Other sharks, other fish, and even other predators show signs of similar adaptations. The great white may simply be the most extreme example. This is where Part 1 pauses, not at a conclusion, but at the threshold of something deeper. Because understanding how great whites survive without sleep is only the beginning. The real mystery lies in what this constant awareness costs, what it protects, and what it reveals about consciousness itself. The idea that a great white shark might never experience true sleep forces scientists to reconsider what sleep actually is. For humans, sleep is a clearly defined state. Consciousness fades. Muscles relax. Brainwaves slow or shift into distinctive patterns. But when researchers try to apply these definitions across species, the concept begins to fracture. Sleep, it turns out, may not be a single universal phenomenon, but a collection of solutions to the same biological problem: how a nervous system avoids overload while remaining functional. In mammals and birds, sleep solves that problem by shutting large portions of the brain down at once. In great whites, evolution appears to have chosen a different strategy. To understand why, scientists look closely at the shark nervous system. A great white's brain is small relative to its body mass, but this can be misleading. What matters is not size, but allocation. A disproportionate amount of the shark brain is devoted to sensory processing. The olfactory bulbs alone are massive, allowing sharks to detect minute chemical traces in water. The cerebellum, responsible for movement and coordination, is highly developed. These regions must remain active almost constantly. Swimming is not optional. Sensing the environment is not optional. What is reduced, however, are regions associated with introspection, imagination, and internal simulation. The great white does not appear to replay memories, rehearse future scenarios, or maintain an internal narrative. Its consciousness, as far as science can infer, is externally anchored. It exists in a stream of present moment input and response. This distinction may be critical. Human brains accumulate fatigue not just from sensory processing, but from constant internal activity. Thoughts generate thoughts. Memories trigger emotions. Anticipation creates stress. Much of what sleep repairs in humans is damage caused by our own inner complexity. The great white avoids this burden entirely. This does not mean its brain is simple. It means it is specialized. Neural circuits are stable. Learning happens slowly, but when it happens, it lasts. Migration routes, hunting grounds, and seasonal patterns are retained for decades. A shark that finds a reliable food source may return to it year after year, guided by memory rather than exploration, because learning is slow and durable. The brain does not require nightly reorganization. There is less need for the kind of synaptic pruning and consolidation that dominates mammalian sleep. Instead, the shark brain appears to rely on rhythmic modulation rather than shutdown. Physiological data from Taggart Sharks reveals subtle cycles. Activity levels rise and fall over hours, not minutes. There are periods of intense alertness during hunting or navigation, followed by long stretches of low stimulation. During these stretches, the shark is still swimming, but its interactions with the environment are minimal. Sensory input is reduced, not eliminated. Response thresholds rise. Only strong stimuli trigger reaction. This resembles a waking trance rather than sleep. Some researchers describe this as continuous vigilance with adjustable sensitivity. The shark never becomes unconscious, but it is not always equally aware. Awareness has depth. At times it is sharp and reactive. At other times it is shallow and passive. This model explains why great whites can survive long migrations without apparent exhaustion. Their bodies are rarely pushed to extremes. Energy expenditure is spread evenly across time. There are no abrupt crashes followed by recovery. Everything is gradual. The heart plays a role as well. Shark hearts are efficient but slow. During gliding phases, heart rate drops significantly. Blood flow continues, but metabolic demand falls. Cells receive oxygen steadily rather than in bursts. This steady-state physiology reduces oxidative stress. One of the main drivers of cellular fatigue. In mammals, sleep helps clear metabolic waste from the brain. In sharks, waste production is lower to begin with. Temperature remains one of the most intriguing pieces of the puzzle. Great whites are partially warm-blooded, capable of maintaining muscle and organ temperatures above ambient water. This allows sudden bursts of speed and enhanced neural performance. But this warmth is not constant. As sharks dive deep, colder water strips heat away. Neural activity slows. Muscle efficiency drops. The shark becomes sluggish, not because it is tired, but because physics demands it. Cold enforces rest. These deep dives are not random. Tagged great whites show repeated patterns, long surface intervals followed by slow descents into darkness. In these depths, prey is scarce. Light is absent. There is little to respond to. The shark moves forward steadily, expending minimal energy. Some scientists believe these dives act as the closest equivalent to sleep the great white experiences. Not in consciousness, but in forced simplicity. A narrowing of the world. Fewer decisions. Fewer stimuli. In this sense, the ocean itself becomes part of the shark's nervous system. Depth, temperature, and pressure regulate brain activity in ways that mammals achieve internally through sleep cycles. This relationship between environment and physiology is fragile. It evolved under stable conditions over millions of years. When those conditions change, the balance may break. Modern oceans are warmer. Temperature gradients are shifting. Cold refuges are becoming harder to access. Prey species are moving, forcing sharks to travel farther and hunt longer. These changes may increase metabolic demand, while reducing opportunities for natural rest. If great whites cannot modulate their activity as they once did, the cost may not be immediate death, but gradual decline. Chronic stress, reduced reproductive success, shortened lifespans. This possibility highlights a larger truth. The great white's apparent immunity to sleep is not invincibility. It is specialization. And specialization always comes with trade-offs. There is also the question of awareness itself. Humans often assume that consciousness requires sleep because our own does. But consciousness is not a single thing. It is a spectrum of experiences shaped by brain architecture. The great white's awareness is likely narrower than ours, but more continuous. It does not switch off. It does not dream. It does not escape the present. There is no evidence of imagination or symbolic thought. There is only perception, movement, and memory. This raises an unsettling idea. Perhaps sleep is not required for intelligence, but for introspection. Perhaps animals that do not reflect do not need to disconnect. If that is true, then the great white is not deprived. It is complete within its own mode of being, yet there are hints that even sharks may not be entirely immune to the need for deeper rest. In laboratory settings, smaller shark species show periods of reduced responsiveness that resemble sleep-like states. Their eyes remain open, but reaction times slow dramatically. Neural activity drops in specific regions. Great whites are too large and too dangerous to study this way. We infer their inner lives indirectly through movement, physiology, and comparison. What we see is an animal that has replaced sleep with balance. No extremes, no peaks followed by collapse. Just endless motion modulated by environment. This strategy may explain why great whites are so difficult to surprise. Why they seem to appear suddenly perfectly timed. They are never groggy, never disoriented. Their sensory systems are always primed, but constant awareness may also limit them. There is no mental escape, no downtime for complex cognition to emerge. The great white is locked into a single mode of existence, exquisitely tuned but inflexible. This may be why their behavior has changed little over evolutionary time. Innovation is slow. Culture does not accumulate. There are no traditions, no teaching beyond basic patterns. The shark does not experiment. It repeats what works. In contrast, animals that sleep deeply, primates, cetaceans, even birds show higher behavioral flexibility. Sleep allows the brain to disconnect from immediate survival and reorganize. Creativity may emerge from unconsciousness. The great white trades creativity for endurance. It survives not by adapting rapidly, but by persisting. As researchers continue to develop new tracking and imaging technologies, the mystery deepens. Future tags may record neural activity directly. We may one day see whether shark brains truly rest or whether